Watch the ride.
Hey everybody, so recently I made a video called This is Filtering. The intention of this video was to show people a legal example of filtering. It was to show car drivers that filtering is legal and why it benefits both us and them, and it's also supposed to be a good example to new riders. Teaching filtering to new riders is very difficult because doing one thing on one day may be legal, doing the same thing on another day in a slightly different traffic situation might not be legal. It's such a grey area that you basically have to use a guideline, which is the rules, and interpret each situation and choose what you do and make each move as you make it. It is not just driving down the middle of the road without paying any attention to anything. You have to have super high levels of attention to lots of different things, which I've talked about in the past, so I'm not going to go into here because it takes forever. But when you filter, it's a real skill that you should progressively build. But it is legal, and it's great. Now, in this video, I said something that some people have disagreed with, which is... And I stopped behind the car in front for two reasons. One, you should, really. Now, the reason I said that is because that is taught all of the time. So much so that when I made my first version of this video you're watching now, which never went live, it just went to Patreon, I actually made a mistake. I was under the impression that filtering past the first car, as in up to the line here, wasn't legal. That's actually not true. As far as we can tell, and this has been fact corrected, thank you Luke for helping me look through all the stuff, it seems like the rules don't actually say you can't do this. It's saying you can't do this, because this is jumping a red. So be aware that the people who say, I go to the front, right to the front, if you go past this line, you've jumped a red. You're not allowed to do that. That's just the way it is. Now, I also want to make it clear here, I am teaching new riders and explaining these things to new riders, not people with experience. Yes, I will go up to the line here, but there are a few things I do when I do that as to whether I'm going to go here or whether I'm going to stick back here. So, back to the beginning. What is taught, but is not a legal requirement, is that when you're filtering, you should stop before the first car. Then when this car pulls away, there's going to be a gap form between these two. So if you pull away about the kind of the same speed, as this gap increases, you can slot yourself in and you'll be into traffic then, and you'll be ahead. But obviously, you would like to go to the front, because that means that when this goes green, you can pin it off the line, get away, and then you're away from traffic, which is a safer thing to do, and it doesn't put you between traffic, which is the entire point of filtering in the first place. It's not about getting ahead, it's mostly about getting out of traffic, which naturally means you do tend to get ahead. So to correct my previous video, stopping before the first car doesn't appear to be a legal requirement, but it is taught a lot. Now, if I am going to go to the front, this only happens in certain scenarios. Now, I must explain, this road layout is a bit weird. Both these roads go that way and both these roads go that way. It's just a really simplified junction to explain the principles of what I want to point out. So if I'm going to go to the front here, this is only going to happen when I've assessed the cars and the drivers. So say you've got a 75-year-old lady in here and an 80-year-old man in here. There's a couple of things you can generally assume from experience and history of repeated scenarios. One, they tend to wait for the green, and they're a little bit slower in reactions, so that gives you time to get away before they really start getting moving. But also, as I mentioned, they're cars. You can see across this way, past this. If this was a truck and this is a van, and I put myself in the middle here, if I can't see down that junction, I don't want to do this, and there are reasons for that, which I'm now going to go into. Obviously, the ideal situation, which does happen quite a lot more these days, is you come along here and for some reason this car isn't on the line, it's 6 feet, 8 feet back. Then you can slot yourself in there and it's absolutely perfect. But that's not always the case. So, as I'm sure most of you do, you go to the line here. So if you're an experienced rider, I'm not trying to tell you to do anything differently. As I say, this is for newer riders, be aware of the risks involved. And if you're an experienced rider, I'm sure you know about this and you do what you can do to mitigate it, as I do. So this light's going to go from green to amber to red, and then there is a time delay between this going red and then this set of traffic lights changing. Now, it's been suggested it's only 3 seconds, and that's a set amount of time. I've also been told by people who said that they worked on traffic lights that it's actually a customised timer which is worked out for each junction. And that can be wrong, which means the gap can be a bit too small. That's what I've been told. I don't know which way around it is, but in practical riding day to day, we do know that these things happen. So this has gone to red, then an amount of time later, this goes from red to amber, and it's when both of these go out and goes green that you're supposed to pull away. not moving up to the line and passing it just as it turns green. You're supposed to start moving as it turns green. As in amber, get ready to go, green, go. I've made a video called Green Means Go before. It's all connected. So here's where the problems start. If you're at the line here, and this goes to amber, and these two car drivers decide to go on amber, like most people seem to do now, then you're going to be in a situation where you have to pin it to get ahead of them, so you don't end up getting pinned between the two of them. You know, they could slightly converge on each other and pin you in the middle. Or if you don't get going and you let them go first, it's not like these cars are going to wait to allow you to get out. They're going to then just continue going through, which leaves you in a situation where you're stuck in the middle and you have got cars passing you either side. So it's a bad scenario. So if you're going to do this, you're going to need to be a confident rider, someone who's not thinking about your clutch or stuff like that, which is why I say new riders shouldn't do this. They should learn to ride a bike, then start filtering, and only do stuff like this when you're very experienced. So what people do to avoid this situation is as soon as they start moving, you have to start going, or bikes will just naturally go as soon as it turns to amber. Now the problem with that is that will end up leaving you about here, say, just after the amber. So if this car's coming along here, it's green, it's gone to amber, and it's turned red as they're going along, and they're like, well, I can make it, it's only just turned red. So they're coming through late on the red. You are coming through early on the green, and it puts you in this scenario where you get T-boned. As I say, statistically speaking, closer to the time that the light turns red, the more chance that a car's going to jump it, because the opportunity is there, but also if there's a car in front of them, it's going to stop at the line, it's going to block them doing it. So the few moments after a red light turns red up here and before this turns green, there is this few seconds of much, much higher risk of going. Yet people do this all the time. And this is the way I think about riding is not, riding a motorcycle. Some people say, if you want to be safe, why even ride a motorcycle in the first place? Yes, it's risky, but you can mitigate those risks. It's like juggling chainsaws. They don't start with chainsaws. So waiting just a few extra moments, just a couple of seconds longer, means that there is a much higher probability that when you do go, you won't have a car coming across here. And as I mentioned, I wouldn't put myself here unless I can see up this road, because then if I see a car cruising along towards the line and it doesn't look like it's going to stop at all, I'm going to account for that situation. That might be hitting the throttle even harder, or that might be taking avoiding action. I mean, I've seen situations where there's a car literally about to jump the red about here, and these cars start going, and it's only, a matter of luck, the fact that they go, oh, as the car goes past, and they go, oh, we jumped to red. If you're on a bike that accelerates away that much quicker, you're a few seconds ahead of that, it gets you because you get T-boned, and you don't have side impact protection, you have bones. So what I'm basically getting at here is that, yes, you're correct. I was wrong in saying that you legally should not go up to the front here, but it is still taught that you should not do that. I do understand why you're saying, or why people have said, well, it puts you in more risk because you're between cars. I agree, but it's not like putting yourself at the front here is making you safe because of being squeezed and or being T-boned. So I do agree with your point, but are you considering this? And the thing is, I know a lot of people go on amber and they're like, it's fine, it's fine, it's fine. It is fine every single time until it isn't. That's literally like the way life works. There is another problem with sitting here and trying to pull away quick, which I've had on my DR and other bikes on wet days. When you sit here, your rear tyre is on a white line. When you try and pin it off the line on that white line, it's very slippery and you can lose the back end. I nearly slipped the back end of my bike into a car. I mean, it wasn't that close, but it twitched when I was doing this in the past. You take your own risks, you do what you want to do. But when I'm teaching new riders, I tend to give them the safest advice. That's why I've even got a video called Do As We Say, Not As We Do. Like with new riders, they're taught not to use a front brake in a corner. When you're more experienced, you're like, but that's trail braking. And you're like, yes, that's braking in a corner with the front brake. So when I teach things, it's intended to new riders to keep them safer. So they can build up to this. And when their own experience, reaches a point that they understand all the risks that's being involved here, then they can do what they want to do. So, hopefully that explains why I said what I said, why what is taught, but also clarify that you legally can go to the front, but I do think it doesn't necessarily make you a lot safer because you're going to have to go on amber most of the time because people don't wait for green, and then that puts you in this scenario. That's my point. I think we all get that. Thank you very much for watching, and I will catch you in the next one. Bye bye.